Welcome to the Public Works Agenda here in the city of Cranston. It is Thursday, July 3rd, 6 p.m. To the clerk, can you please take a call?
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Present.
Councilman Ferry.
Present.
Councilman Donegan. Councilman Campopiano. Councilwoman Jermaine.
Present.
Council Vice President Vargas.
Present.
Council President Marino.
Present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Approval of minutes of the June 15, 2023 meeting. May I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion a second. Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Yes.
Councilman Ferry.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine.
Yes.
Council Vice President Vargas.
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Thank you. This item on the agenda is the Committee on Business Matters carried over. That is 2-23-03. That's ordinance and amendment of Chapter 15 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Buildings and Construction, Poles Relocation, sponsored by Councilman Donegan. This was continued as amended, and I welcome any motions on the floor.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and there's a second. Discussion. Councilwoman
yes.
Jermaine.
As Council Donegan is not here today, he was continued many times. Do we have a favor to continue? I would like to make a motion to continue that because he's not here today.
No, council, give me 1 second. Councilmember Ferry.
I had a discussion with him today and he would like to see this proceed.
That is correct. I believe there was an email that was sent out through the clerk, I believe. Any discussion on this amendment? Council President Marino.
Sure. I believe from the email that we received this evening through the clerk for the meeting that Councilman Donegan is seeking to amend this so that it includes the fine as being up to $100. So if perhaps Councilman Ferry wants to withdraw his motion to approve, and then we can have a motion to amend along those lines in discussion.
I will withdraw my motion and I make a motion to approve the amended ordinance.
Second,
Any discussion on the amendment on the floor?
just if we want to just confer with legal counsel as to that amendment, if that requires additional notice, or if we are sufficient this evening and going forward with the amendment as proposed to the full
No,
council.
that amendment is relatively minor, so I would say it's fine to amend it and go forward.
Thank you, Solicitor Radecchia. Right, any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, the clerk, can you please take the roll?
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Yes.
Councilman Ferry.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine.
Yes.
Council Vice President Vargas.
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes,
Thank you. Now to take a motion on the actual ordinance as amended.
So moved.
second,
Thank you. Any discussion? No, seeing none. Through the clerk, can you please take the roll on that?
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Yes.
Councilman Ferry.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine.
Yes.
Council Vice President Vargas. Council President Marino.
yes.
Thank you. Next up, we have public comment. Is there anyone here in the chamber that would like to discuss or come up before us on any subject matters that are on docket matters only? Please come forward. If you can state your name and your address for the record, please. Thank you. Is it green light on?
Green is on. Okay. My name is Matthew Pepino. I live at 33 Welfare Ave. And good evening, members of the Public Works Committee. I'm here this evening because after talking with Councilwoman Vargas yesterday, who invited me to make a comment at this meeting, there's an issue on my street that I wanted to just bring to the attention of the committee. About a year and a half ago, the streets were repaved, and in doing so, there were accessibility ramps put on each corner of the intersections in the neighborhood. Seems that when that was done, when we've been having these rain events, and not just the one this week or the one on Labor Day, which are kind of the two big ones lately, the water is not only flowing down the street, but because the accessibility ramps are a little bit higher and the street is actually higher too, the water is now flowing down the sidewalk in addition to the street. So there's street water coming down the sidewalk. It is a slight decline. So what's happening is the water is coming down the street and coming down the sidewalk. And the way that our house is set up, the driveway pitches into an under the house garage. It's not a huge pitch, but it's a pitch. And so what's been happening is water has been coming from the sidewalk down the driveway and into the garage and then subsequently into the basement. We've done different measures as homeowners that we've tried to do, that we've seen fit. We put in a permeable paver driveway since this started happening. We've done some re-landscaping. And as you can imagine, none of this is inexpensive. But with this latest storm that we had on Monday, even with the permeable paver driveway that we have, because the water is not just coming from the sky and it's coming from the sidewalk, it's still making a diversion down the driveway. I'm obviously not an engineer, but I happen to serve on the Cranston Flood Committee from 2011 to 2016. I don't know if any of you remember me. I know there's sometimes a change of regard, but matters of this concern have always been important to me. I've been a resident of Cranston for many, many years. And I think there may be some solutions to this. One possibly being some type of, small re-engineering where the accessibility ramp is either raised or perhaps a little bit maybe of a hump, so to speak, so that it's not as flat. It would be wonderful if someone from the city could come to see the site. We would love to show them, what exactly is happening. And it's, the street does receive a lot of water when there are huge rain events. Drainage is a larger issue, but the current one is more specific to that intersection. So I just wanted to bring this attention to this committee. Because I'd like to, put our heads together, figure out what can be done. The streets look great. The handicap ramps look wonderful too. But like I said, now there's been just this new issue that has been created. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Because it's a public comment, we can't actually have an actual conversation, but no, we can have a conversation, but we can actually have it under council communications. So unfortunately, just as much as I'd like to answer some of your questions and defer to the administration, I'll hold off until we get onto council communications. This may actually fall under the council communication, not only the one that I actually have under like drainage and stormwater, but obviously Council President Marina also has some flood related item on the agenda. All right. Is there anyone else in the chamber that would like to come up and speak on docketed items? Okay, I see no one. Tom, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on?
I see no public comment.
Fair enough. Seeing there is no further public comment, closing off that section, moving on to new matters before the committee. Next item, we have a petition of the Narragansett Electric and Verizon New England Corporation for installation of pole on Hazelton Street. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, it should say Rhode Island Energy.
Instead of Narragansett Electric?
Do they still even exist?
If I could. through the chair.
Council President, go
Yeah.
ahead.
The Narragansett Electric could be a subsidiary of Rhode Island Energy. Oftentimes there are numerous companies, so perhaps that is, I don't know. All I know is the petition before us is under the letterhead of Rhode Island Energy and makes specific mention of the Narragansett Electric. So perhaps they are the owners of the pole.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Great.
Yeah,
So before we move forward, is there a motion to approve first?
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Is there a second? For discussion?
Second for discussion,
Councilwoman Jermaine, go ahead.
I have some reserve for that because I'm not clear. If it's, I understand the, what, Council President has said, but I'm Verizon, New England, EMC, Niagara Electric, so I would like to have someone from this company explain that, because if not with Allen Energy, so I'm not in favor to vote for that as is right now, because I'm not clear.
Thank you. Can I have Solicitor Verdecchia come before us? So Attorney Verdecchia, if we were to approve this evening, are we still able to have someone from the city in terms of whether it's the clerk office reach out? If there's any discrepancy, or do you see that this is okay for us to approve if it's on different letter? I mean, the letterhead is dated June 5th, 2003. I would assume that someone coming before us, particularly under an office like Rhode Island Energy, would actually have all their ducks in a row before submitting to us. But
Yeah, I think it's more pro forma than it is substantive. It seems, I'm only aware of Rhode Island Energy. I'm not aware of anything else. It could be maybe Scrivener's on their part, or I think we all know what the intention is. So if it becomes a problem later on, we can certainly revisit it, but it shouldn't hold up anything now.
no problem. Thank you. The discussion? All right. Seeing there's no further discussion on this matter, to the clerk, can you please take the roll?
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilman Ferry.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
No,
Council Vice President Vargas,
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item we have is under council communication, Councilwoman Jermaine. You had an item on here. There's no vote to be taken this evening, but it's regarding unkept properties.
yes.
Go right ahead.
Do we have anyone from the administration here tonight?
Director Moretti, come forward before the podium, please.
Hello, hi.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you. There is one of the matters that was brought into your attention that been resolved. Thank you.
214,
Yes,
looks great.
it looks great, right? So
Good.
we really don't want to continue to have all of those things happening and have people cried out for cleanliness in our city. And I happened to take a walk into Park Avenue from the intersection Wellington to Genset Ave. All the sidewalk, and I know those are properties that full of trash and debris and bushes. And that is unacceptable. So based on what we discussed last meeting about the properties that has been unkept by the owners, and I would like to hear what has been put in place since then. I know you do some work. Was the city doing it or the owner? So that's my question.
Yeah, actually, in both of those cases, it was actually the owners that took the initiative. Soon after we followed up, and there was movement in the right direction. So those properties are looking better, particularly that one. In terms of any trash along Park Avenue, happy to have DPW to go out there to probably next week and address that. I think you're right. Park Avenue is a main thoroughfare, main city street. It should be right that it's clean and free of vegetation. So we'd be sure that they'll go by.
It's the whole form right down in the intersection. I was stunned to see that. It's like no one lived, and we have a lot of businesses. And that's one of the things, if we do businesses, I'm looking at I'm working on a sidewalk ordinance right now, but it's unacceptable. It's your property, it's your business. It should be clean. It's insulting for the customers as well. You know, you go in to buy something and you enter, it's trash everywhere, bushes everywhere. It is insulting. And what do we do about that?
Unfortunately, that's bad human behavior, difficult to correct. In order to find people, to enforce the laws, they have to be found littering. They have to be cited when it happens. Beyond that, we have to just react and clean up the mess. But it is social engineering is the biggest challenge we have in the city in many of these issues.
So when we go to a business and we find trash in front of the business and they don't take care of the sidewalk, so we have no recourse?
I would have to check with minimum housing. But a lot of times, for instance, in the areas you mentioned, perhaps we could take care of it regrettably. But certainly could pass that on to our economic development director to pop into those businesses and ask them to take more pride. Frankly, we'll be driving down. We did a nice job there, as you know, together on Pontiac Avenue, Rolfe Street. And there's a couple of businesses that just leave their mess out in front. It's a shame. But to your point, we agree with you. And I'll ask Director Paulino to step into those businesses and ask them if they could help cooperate with the city. It's a good idea.
Okay, what is the role of the inspection, in that matter? So we know we have a department where we have someone that oversaw those kind of
Yeah,
things, don't we?
What it is inspections, minimum housing, it's violations on their properties. So if there's debris on the city sidewalks, direct attorney the solicitor right here I know that guy, John. But he can comment, but I believe that is the city responsibility in that respect. I don't think they can be cited on city property unless I'm wrong.
Okay, thank you. So I hope next time I'm going to continue that. Next time we have clear result, and also what is the deterrent, what we could do. I know I'm working on something, and it's not easy to really, when you don't find a person head on, so right on the action. So what we need to figure out how to do that, because it's so dirty. So I you know, it's summer. I take a walk around the neighborhood. I don't know for other places, but right in Ward 2, it's really dirty. And this is unacceptable. Thank you. Madam Clerk, we want to continue this matter for the next meeting. I know Solicitor Favicchio wants to wait on.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman, so what, you just want me to comment, just expand a bit on what the director already said?
I think Dr. Moetti said you can comment on something. He couldn't.
Well, yeah, what the director said as far as imputing responsibility to an adjacent landowner is really turns on a lot of things. Clearly, they're responsible to maintain their property. If they don't, they can be cited. If it rises to the level of a nuisance, that becomes even more serious. Okay, now, the difficulty, I think, sometimes is trying to draw the line between what is genuinely their litter versus just the public at large. I mean, somebody walks by and throws something on the sidewalk, you can't blame the business owner for that. Now, you can, however, sometimes there'll be circumstantial evidence. For instance, you walk by a business and there's a bunch of stuff on the sidewalk. Maybe it's an ice cream place. I'll just choose that. And you see a bunch of large ice cream containers and they're out on the sidewalk. Even though that's city property, you can draw the inference that that stuff came from inside the business. So they should be liable. So that's why I'm saying it's pretty fact intensive. You'd have to do a little bit of investigating, a little bit of digging. You know, because there is a line between what's the individual's responsibility versus what is the city's responsibility. You can't hold individuals responsible for the actions of, you know, the public at large.
That's why I call you in, because I am not clear. I'm not a lawyer. So I'm reading the ordinance around sidewalk repairing and all of those things, because I'm working on an ordinance. And it's really vague. And that's why I want, where is the line? Where is the line? What as a city we should do and we didn't? And what should the responsibility of the owners? So I want a clear information to know where is the line drawn here.
Well, I think the line is, you start with, is it city property? Is it individual property? That's the first step. Second step is, where is the litter? Where is it located? Both, one, or the other, okay? The final step is, if it's on the individuals, that's easy, because then they can be cited and they can be ordered to clean it by the court. However, if it's over the line and it's public, now unless you can prove that the source was from that individual or that business, it's going to be up to the city to clean that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to the next item. Sorry about that. Councilwoman Renzulli, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the solicitor a question. It is true, though, that there is an ordinance where businesses have to shovel the sidewalks in front of their businesses, correct? But it's still city property. Is that correct?
That, as far as, yes, you're correct. And there's also an ordinance which, and it hasn't been tested as to whether or not it hasn't been tested in court, because I have my own views on whether or not you can make individuals liable to repair city-owned property. That's another issue. But we do have, in addition to the snow removal ordinance, we do have a sidewalk repair ordinance as well, which places, subject to certain conditions, the responsibility to maintain that sidewalk on the adjacent landowner too. So there's two ordinances.
And they both put it on either the business or the homeowner. correct?
Under snow, yes, automatically. The repair part of it, it's a little more nuanced. Sometimes it's 50-50, if I recall the way the ordinance reads. Sometimes it's not. It's a little different than the snow removal. The snow removal is categorically, if the snow is on the sidewalk in front of your business, you have to remove it.
And, I mean, they didn't put the snow there, obviously, Mother Nature. did.
Yeah, well,
But, so how do we know, because this has never been brought into court, how do we know that any of these things are viable?
those snow removal ordinances, because I did quite a bit of research on those, they have been upheld throughout the country for the most part. The Rhode Island Supreme Court has done it in a roundabout way, because what the Rhode Island Supreme Court said, what was happening is this. So there's an ordinance saying I have to keep the sidewalk clear in front of my house. Okay, I don't do it. Somebody comes by, they slip and they fall, they get hurt. They sue me on the basis I didn't comply with the ordinance. The Rhode Island Supreme Court said, okay, you can enact that ordinance and tell them to remove the snow. However, if they don't do it, they cannot be sued. So they, in a roundabout way, they kind of said, in other words, they didn't categorically come out and say, you can't have that type of ordinance. What they said was, you can have the ordinance, but if somebody doesn't do it and you want to cite them, I guess that's fine. They can't be sued. They're not going to be liable for a fall on city property.
Okay, so if a trash ordinance, a littering ordinance that was kind of ran parallel to the snow ordinance was put in, it could perhaps work.
You
on
would
the
have
same
to,
idea.
it would have to be crafted very tightly and carefully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council President Marino.
Just on this topic, I just want to point out, sometimes it is the businesses that have the trash. Sometimes businesses are the unfortunate recipient of the trash because people who have their, garbage, people who are doing construction work on their own and don't have a means that they don't want to pay for to dump the material, they will just find a business at night when no one's there and dump it. So just be considerate of, even though you may see trash or things that don't belong, it's not always the business's fault, just as is the case with residents where we get calls where there's a mattress outside of somebody's house because someone just dumped it there. And that's another issue. So like Attorney Verdecchia had mentioned, sometimes it's circumstantial, sometimes it's more clear that it comes from the, neighboring property, but that's not always the case.
May I?
Councilwoman Jermaine.
Yes, so what I brought here is not to blame somebody. I want to have a clear path to solve the problem because the trash, the unkept property is not good. So we need to come as a city, that's why I asked the question, to know exactly, because I was reading. So as I said, I'm working on an ordinance and I hope everybody will be, we cannot do it all of us at the same time. But as I read those ordinances, there's language that is really to be removed completely. But I saw if a sidewalk has not been repaired, it's if the homeowner don't do it, it's the duty of the public works to do it. And then have the costs go to the tax access, not tax assessor, the treasurer to see the costs. They have to do it. So we need to know who is accountable here. So it's not, I'm blaming the businesses but we all have a responsibility and we have to be accountable. We have to do what we have to do, what is due to do to keep the city clean. So that's my point.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, if there's no further discussion on that topic, I'm going to move on to my council communications that I have. I have 4 on here, so please bear with me. Okay. First, the Big Belly Smart Waste System. Director Moretti, if you have a second, I have a question regarding the Big Billy Smart Waste System.
Chair, would you mind directing it to Mr. Matus, who's actually familiar with that? I'd be happy to take it, but he might be the person that's more familiar to have that dialogue with you. I'm happy to take it, but he might be have more of an expertise. Thank you.
I apologize. Can you please say your name again?
My name's Justin Matus,
Sorry, Justin. And you work in what department?
Department of Public Works.
Great, thank you. So Justin, question for you, given the fact that we've had like conversation. As well. Areas, what? Belly Smart Waste System, and for those who don't know what it is an actual just It's a trash can that's covered up. It's solar powered. And it compresses down the trash. So particularly in areas where it's high traffic, like say businesses, I'll stick with say Patuxent Village as an example. People dump trash in there, it's covered. And it reduces the amount of time that the city may have to even go out in terms of picking up the actual trash because it's compressing it down. So my question is, I didn't know whether the city had any interest or there was any research. To maybe,
Yeah, so we have looked into these big belly trash cans, and just to give some more information on what you've already explained. Basically, these are solar powered units that compact trash to hold 5 times the more unit. As they're full, is a sensor inside that sends a message to DPW saying, I'm full, please come empty me. That sounds great. But we did find a couple articles, one from the Boston Globe, and I'll just read the headlines. A Needham company tried to solve the problem for urban garbage with solar powered bins, but it wasn't a clear cut solution. And it just talks about some problems that they've had with the bins in Needham as well as Boston. And another article out of Newport, from Newport this week, with the headline, Big Belly Trash Bins Raise a Stink. The problem that they're having over there is larger items that are trying to be stuffed into these bins are clogging the systems and jamming it, making the sensor render useless, and DPW never gets the update to empty that bin. That's the flaws that they've seen mostly. And they also, as far as the rat situation, I agree this would be a good solution to get rats out of city tippy cans. But I think the rat problem, it would help, but that would not be a vast majority of the rat problem in the city. I think a lot of those problems come from dumpsters or grease traps from restaurants, excuse me. So I do agree with you that we would see some benefits in that. I think we would also see some technological difficulties with these, vandalism with them and improper use, making it a little bit more difficult than how we maintain our tippy cans right now.
sure. So there are also covered trash cans that are not solar powered. Is there possibly the need to, possibly the option for us to even look into that? In areas, again, I'm talking about Patuxent Village, House Cove. That's the other reason why I added it on here. There's an overflow of trash taking place over there. I've had neighbors reaching out to me. Not sure what your trash pickup schedule is as of today. I know what it was when I asked the same question, probably about a year ago. If it wasn't last summer, maybe the summer before that. Curious to know what you have on your end in terms of what the schedule for pickup is. And that's the reason why I started talking about just covered trash cans to prevent any type of overflow if possible. And I just thought of the solar powered one would be great. However, technology, you're saying it's not working, but just having then a trash can that is actually closed.
So we do have lids on the trash cans. They're not closed like a residential trash can with a lid that opens and closes. There is a dome over them, which protects from weather, so the bags don't get full of water. And there's also a rim around it to prevent rodents from getting under it, as well as climbing up it and getting inside of it. So we do try to prevent that right now. Something I forgot to mention about these trash cans is the expense of them. They're about $2,000 to $4,000 per bin. That'd be for trash, and recycling would be $4,000 to $8,000. So very expensive, and the cost benefit analysis, I don't think.
But they're not expensive, but they're not solar operated and they have lids on them. And so in Patuxent Village and in your House Cove, they're not actually all covered, as you're saying. So I would really suggest the administration to give that a look.
Absolutely.
Because to your point, yes, I get the solar ones are very expensive. What I don't think is as expensive is just actually putting an actual lid on the trash cans. And maybe they have them in other parts of the city, but not in those neck of the woods. So if you don't mind, through the administration, if we can actually send someone down there to give that a look and see what we can do to maybe look at the different type of trash can options that we can over there. What is the schedule of pickup, by the way? It's still House Code.
Yes, I talked to the highway superintendent as well as the person left in charge in his absence this week, and they have a crew going out there every day.
every day.
Correct.
Okay,
I know there is one location where there was an agreement made with a shop owner, an ice cream shop.
Stillhouse Cove is not where the ice cream shop is.
Is that where Patuxent Village is?
Patuxent Village is on Broad Street and the Warwick and Cranston side, right? We have, it's part of Cranston and there's also part of Warwick. I'm talking about Stillhouse Cove.
Yep.
And in Patuxent Village. You're telling me the
Correct.
Patuxent Village one, but the
Both of them.
Stillhouse Cove, that one's every day?
Correct.
All right, I would disagree with that statement because there's an overflow going on. There's been some residents who have actually put some gloves on and picked up the trash around it. I understand it's also the summer and there's a lot of overflow taking place. There's just, people walking, things along those lines. But to say that we have highway going every day, I could be completely wrong, but based what I've also seen, I wouldn't say that someone goes by every day from the highway department, but I'd welcome that conversation and just confirm if that's the case.
Okay, yeah, we could take another ride by, but their schedule is a daily schedule over
All
there.
right, great, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The next item that I have on here, Director Moretti, this might be for you unless it's for Justin as well. It's the hiring of the Public Works Director. I believe, we had one retired, we had information of the appointment that came before us. I believe he's left the city. Are we posting this position? What do we have? What's going on?
Since April, position's been posted with city website, working with the League of Cities and Towns, Indeed. So we're trying to recruit. It isn't not the easiest thing. In fact, you might recall the last time we did hire a Public Works Director, it was, I believe, one applicant and the person did receive two applicants and the person did receive the position, the offer. It's not popular to work for the city of Cranston. Wages are typically lower than most other communities. We're not competitively paid, just like you hear a lot of departments speaking about. This position is an at-will employee, subject to the will of the mayor. Which means by changing, if the mayor changes, so can this position. So with a year and a half left of Mayor Hopkins' term, maybe it's a year and a half, maybe it's 5.5 years, who knows? Not as easy to recruit at this stage in the game. We're experiencing that along with not only this admin position, but there's also there's several other positions in the city. In terms of the labor force, we're experiencing great difficulty recruiting. So where it's at, we want to give it another stretch, maybe another month or so. We have a couple of ideas because there is a stress on the Public Works Department. Mr. Matus is our acting Public Works
Just
Director
answer my next
capacity,
question. Thank you.
but he was a chief engineer, but basically he's trying to do two jobs and we're setting him up to fail, to be honest with you, anybody, him or anyone else to do that, especially during peak season. So you're right, we need to get on this and make a call. We'd like to report back to you next month. And we've been getting, we're trying to narrow this thing down, what our options are.
If the position is posted,
Please.
that's going on lately, that we have a Public Works Director in place to take care of the needs of the city and continue to improve the quality of life of the city residents and with winter snowfalls, just upkeep in general. So
Sure.
Yeah.
With that also, may I please pass along on the city's website, you go into departments personnel, it's going to say the open positions. There's a bunch of them. So if anyone knows good people to recruit for, please promote it.
but we are posting on websites as well, other than the Public Works and the, other than like leagues of cities and towns.
Yeah, Indeed has been a kind of a go-to. There could be other recruitment efforts, and word of mouth, and that's typically what we've been finding is how people are coming to us.
Great, thank you. Well, we have a couple of networks here this evening, so if you would like to actually give us a little plug, that would be greatly appreciated, which is probably one of the reasons why you're here this evening. So we need a Public Works Director. All right, that being said,
Madam,
sorry, Go ahead, Councilmember Ferry.
To the chair, have you considered asking the retired engineer Nick Capezza to possibly fill in part-time?
We can go to executive session to talk about specific personnel. Yeah, I think that'd be appropriate in executive session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ferry, I would definitely take you up on putting together that executive session. Yeah, thank you. Any further discussion on what we just discussed? All right, I'm going to move on to just my next item. All right, the next item that I have is in the city. The reason why I added this to the to the agenda was we have a constituent who we heard this evening. Welfare in Parkman Street, here, not too far from City Hall. The administration also received an email, they also forwarded, probably ongoing since May, which has to do with Director Moretti, if you recall, the email was from Lakeside Avenue, which is right near Park View Middle School. There's Fenner Pond that's right behind the resident. And there was some overflowing taking place over there. As a lot of things been happening in development, and I have a few questions. Some of them I won't end up asking because I think Council President Marino may also have some under her, specifically under her item under flooding, stormwater issues in the city street. But what to the director or to our interim public works director, just had a couple of questions in terms of the city's drainage kind of stormwater plan or sewer overloads that are taking place throughout the entire city. What I do know is that there are there's blockage that's taken place, and I know a lot of that particularly is probably due to debris that is going down and possibly blocking the catch basins or the inlets that are in the actual road. I'm trying to figure out, do we as a city, what is the process on even clearing up any of the the storm sewers that we have around the city, to possibly avoid any type of water backing up into a residential property, which happened also a few months ago, which I do have to say that the administration responded to that request to the constituents fairly fast. As a matter of fact, I think even the mayor ended up going there that same evening or the next morning as well, because I visited that resident and that's what he had mentioned to me. And then I followed up with the mayor himself. But I'm trying to figure out, there's kind of like two components, right? The drainage process in terms of it's the homeowner's responsibility when there's flood that comes in, things that get backed up into their water that gets backed into their property. But what responsibility do we also have here as a city in terms of understanding and getting to know how we handle or assess the catch basins, adding more larger diameters of pipes or more inlets on roads, to try to work with constituents in the city who are having some sort of drainage issue concerning the flooding. In the case of Matthew, who's here with us this evening, seems like his street prior to being paved had no issue with the water. And now that it's paved, there's water kind of obviously going into his property. And that's probably because the street, and I'm not an engineer, it used to be not level. Now it's actually leveled to the sidewalk and to the cobblestone, that it's going right into the sidewalk and right into his property. So I'll start off with asking if we can actually have the city swing by Matt's property. That would be helpful. And then I know I have kind of a load of comments and questions, but I'll start off with that. And I have to say, I did go by Matt's property, as a matter of fact, just as Council President, Marino, and I actually ended up going by Matt's house as well. But just take it away.
Matt, just a quick question, Tim, through the chair.
Sure.
What number at your 33? Thank you. Mr. Matus came to see you, so he'll be out there to check out your situation. Thank you.
for that.
Specifically there. As to the whole thing, I think Council President had concerns, issues. Do you want to kind of attack?
We do,
this?
and we can actually, would you
It
like
kinda
to kind of collaborate and take it out of order? So if there is no, I don't think we have to put a motion to take it out of order. So Council President, if you want to add a little on your end in terms of the flooding, stormwater issues in the city streets. You also had discussion and seeking an update from the administration on causes, remediation plans and cost. So I'll hand you the mic so that way you can also add your concerns on this matter.
Thank you, Council Vice President. The agenda item here is more encompassing, so it will be able to provide an opportunity for the administration to address the bigger concerns, particularly in light of the recent flooding and what's is seemingly a more frequent problem in the city. Some of it is old, some is new, and the best thing we can do is look to the experts within the city, with the engineering department, and have a discussion as to the actual problem areas, the causes for them, and the remediation aspect, including what the costs are. We all understand we can't have a one size fits all solution, but we need to have a discussion on knowing what the problem areas are and what we're going to do. So I thank Council Vice President too for her topic with respect to drainage. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, what I'd like to do, if it's permissible, just to give an overview myself. We also have our environmental program manager who handles these things. And he'll talk more specifically, but if I kind of give an introduction to give, I think, a more global picture, just had a prepared statement to say, as we all know, flash flooding in some areas of the city caused by infrequent acts of God has persisted for decades, pretty much, and probably with climate change is more often in that regard. The city has remedied some of the problematic areas, but others still exist for various reasons. Hopefully we can clarify some of your questions. As you know, the city is in the same boat, pardon the pun, as most other communities in the state. The fundamental reason for problems occurring during extraordinary rain events in urbanized areas is old infrastructure and environmental discharge concerns. These conditions exist for both municipalities and as well as the state. There are numerous drainage problems throughout the city that have issues during storm events similar to that which occurred on July 10th. These issues typically occur during brief intense rain events, such as when we get 2 inches of rain or more in a 1 to 2 hour period. The majority of these problems are due to the undersized underground piping. Interconnections with state RIDOT drainage system also has contributed to these problems. The Public Works Department has been working on maintenance of our drainage system over the last several years by implementing a catch basin cleaning program and flushing cleaning of underground piping. This is done under the state RIDEM MS4 regulations, and we have been in full compliance. Concerning capacity issues with the current drainage system, it is not a simple fix to just increase the size of pipes to allow more drainage to enter. Increased pipe sizes would likely not be approved by Rhode Island DEM because that would just push the problem literally downstream. Any true fixes to the system would require the city to reduce the flow of rainwater into the system by using engineering features such as new detention ponds, underground infiltration of stormwater, permeable pavements, etc. This is now required and is done routinely during the engineering of new subdivisions in large-scale commercial developments. It is fairly cost-effective to complete these stormwater mitigation programs for new developments. Retrofitting these types of systems into existing developed sections of the city can be extremely expensive and might be physically impossible to achieve a meaningful improvement to the problems. So that was to kind of give a more global sense. Now we have Ed Talley, who is our environmental program manager, is here to address any, I guess, maybe specific areas. Certainly we have targeted areas that we know about. He can provide some explanations he can maybe go over, highlight some of the more major areas of concern, or if you folks had any particular ones that can be, would like to be addressed, be happy to respond.
All right, before you hand it over, Council President Marina, I know you had an initial question.
Just a follow-up there, and it may be incorporated then into the discussion, which is why I mention it now, is that recently the city successfully was approved through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank to join on to the Municipal Resiliency Program. And a big component of that is floodwater mitigation. And so I'm wondering, in terms of the costs and the future remediation problems, how that program is going to be incorporated into the problems that we have. And so maybe if tonight, this evening, that component is included in the discussion rather than me asking it later.
Yep,
Thanks.
Mr. Talley is very well equipped with that, and I could just tell you briefly, he's familiar with it. I think the answer could be working with our grant writer, with your grant writer, the council's grant writer, to be aggressive there. But certainly, he indicated to me that there is money out there. It's getting it, and it is time consuming on resources. So I would say utilizing Mr. Talley's department and our grant writer to try and take advantage of those. But Mr. Talley is very familiar with the program. If you'd like to ask him some questions.
Sure, thank
Do you
you.
want to take that, Ed?
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ed Talley. I'm the stormwater coordinator for the city of Cranston. I've been involved with stormwater here for over 10 years, so I have a little institutional knowledge, and I've been to the places and have my boots on. So just to answer a couple quick questions about, our process on what we do in the event that there is going to be a storm event scheduled like Friday. The highway division will go out, and there's a list of low-lying areas where they'll check and remove any debris from the catch basins prior to try to alleviate that. I know the city of Providence, Mayor Smiley was discussing having residents do their part. If there's a drain in front of their house that they know gets covered up, especially in the fall, that is a typical issue, to clear those off so the water can make its way into the system. During large flash flooding events, that doesn't really matter that much because the capacity of those lines can't handle the water that's coming in. And the flash flooding events that we're seeing, they have been more intense and more frequent over the last 10, 15 years. So I believe the hazard mitigation plan that we just approved in 2022 mentioned 12, if you include this last storm on Monday, 12 storms that would be flash flooding events that cause this type of result in the city. The catch basins have been cleaned out. We had a program. The reason why we started the catch basin cleaning program was to we have 4,500 catch basins that we have to clean out every year based on our stormwater permit. So we went through the process of cleaning those out. Rhode Island DEM will allow us to reduce the number of cleanings if we can prove with data that we don't need to be there every year. So as an effort to have some cost savings to the city, I implemented that project. And we collect data on every single catch basin when we go out there and clean it, and then compare year over year data and come up with a new schedule, which we actually just started this week for our new schedule, which cut the amount of catch basins that we need to clean in half. So that's been very successful. But what that means is that we have cleaned these catch basins to the bottom for the last 2 years. Really, it ends up falling over 3 years. So the system is clean, and it gives me confidence to say that these storm events that we're having are really too much for the system to take. And they were never designed to take 2 inches of rain in an hour. So that's been, and you see the same places over and over again in the news.
Thank you for that information. And yeah, Yep, you can. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna finish my train of thought real quick before I forget it was, I appreciate you providing us with all that information. That's information that I also researched, that I've also reached out to other municipalities, trying to get a sense. Climate change obviously has a lot, I personally believe, to do with a lot of this. I also feel that, in terms of, as you mentioned, with the amount of rain, I'm thinking, right, the sewer can only handle like a certain amount of inches per day. Is that what it is? But because when you have high flooding amount of water coming in, it's filling up, it can't take it.
Right.
So, is part of the plan moving, I guess the plan moving forward, other than cleaning like the catch basins, which is a great initiative on this end, is what about like the inlets or the catch basin? Are we looking at maybe having I know you can't have a lot of like bigger holes, right? Because you don't want a lot of leaves and
A lot of
debris
bigger,
to go
right.
through it. I get that part. Is there anything new, innovative out there with so much of this conversation taking place throughout the entire country? It's not just an issue that we're having here in
Right.
Cranston, which
Right.
I understand completely.
Mm.
But it is our due diligence to be proactive here in Cranston because it's
Sure.
the city that we represent. So are there any catch basins or inlets or around the streets or anything that we're able to probably, with the infrastructure bank, try to get a sense as to improving on new
Sure, yeah,
overall better water flow, I guess.
I'll try to answer that question. So we, because of climate change, a lot of the federal money that's been coming out has had green infrastructure tied to that. So trying to find green solutions to get this water in the ground prior to it getting to a pipe, prior to it getting to a catch basin. There's nothing innovative about the catch basin itself that's changing all that much. The goal is to get it off the roadway in the first place. So unfortunately, I think that's a community-based effort where we all need to do our small little part on the impervious area that we have on our own properties. And the challenge we have as a city is we don't have a lot of room to implement the larger changes that might make the biggest difference in our city roadways without spending a lot of money. And hopefully this grant money can assist us with that. But we have done some proactive green infrastructure projects, one at Speck Field, one at Barrett Street, to try to get some underground infiltration. But a lot of that is tied to water quality. So it will have some flood inundation. You can take some of the flood water, but it's still not designed to take that 2 inches. It's designed to take your first flush, your first inch of water that comes off the system, and you get water quality treatment based on what you're looking to try to improve as far as water quality stands. So
For that, Councilwoman Jermaine, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing this issue again, because I brought that issue last time we have this flood, and we have a lot of houses in Reservoir Ave. I remember Council President Marino talk about a plan that we had regarding the flood. So I don't know where we are with that plan for now. I'm also happy to hear that you said you have institutional knowledge about those issues right here. I would like to ask you a question. Do you know the issue in Richard Street and Clarence Street?
I'm sorry, can you repeat those streets?
We have an issue because, I was like, when we talk about the flooding in the sidewalk, I brought this issue back 2020.
Okay.
Clarence Street and Richard Street, do you know about this issue?
I'm aware of the Auburn section having flooding issues.
Yes.
Yes.
Clarence Street, Richard Street, Orchard Street, the whole area behind was square. I'm reading an email that I sent in November 28, 2020 to the Department of Public Works. So regarding those issues, I never had the solution, but I do hope I will be benefit from this conversation.
Mhm.
And the resident in Ward 2 that have been complaining for past 10, they told me 10 or 15 years, they've been complaining about the issue they have right there. So I sent picture to the administration about that issue.
Mhm.
And today we have a resident that come here that talk about the same problem they have.
Mhm.
And I'm really glad I have you here today. We respond about the same issue that we've been talking about for quite a while. So it wasn't me that put it on that, but I would like to benefit from that. So can I have a word from you that will take a look at what happened in the flooding that happened in those streets for over decades?
Sure. So the watershed that is drained from Auburn is over 300 acres. The streets there are flat. There's not a lot of pitch. So you don't have a lot of grade in the roads. The discharge of that goes through Magnolia Street and it goes through the Housing Authority, under Magnolia, through the Doric Park basketball courts in the field. And it goes under the train tracks, under Route 95, splits with 95. So some of the flow goes to 95. The rest goes down under the train tracks, down under Elmwood Avenue through Johnson Controls, and then discharges to Fenner Pond. So we did look at that in a study that we completed in 2014. We were hopeful that Johnson Controls during some of their upgrades would do some upsizing of pipes. We have some plans to upsize pipes downstream, but we did look at adding catch basins in different areas on different streets strategically. And this study was basically set up as you have this option, or you could add option 1 with option 2. So there was a little bit of flexibility there. Ultimately, I think Chief of Staff alluded to this, and it's true. Putting more catch basins is going to get the water into the pipe quicker and create more of a peak flow. So you're not really solving the problem. You're going to get it flooded faster is essentially what's going to happen. So when you look at that on a cost benefit analysis, it never rose to the level of turning into a project for us. In the meantime, we're dealing with a lot of the kind of onesie twosies that I would call that flooding issue that I'm sure we'll probably be able to help them out. And we've solved a lot of those minor issues throughout the years, but that watershed is a major problem. And we have interconnections with the state. We have private property issues, and we don't have a lot of land to work with either. Excuse me.
Does that mean this problem is too big to be solved, or do you have a plan?
I think it requires more discussion. And I think when we're having these discussions, a lot of this grant money wasn't out there. So if I can just scale back to the municipal resiliency program, that getting on the list for that program comes with technical assistance, where we would go and we would have these discussions and we would say, this is where we're having problems. And here's the information we have to inform what potential solutions we may actually can be implemented. So that's.
Can you please promise you will take a look at this, put it in your agenda?
It's on my list.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The list is going to keep growing, trust me.
Always.
Council President Marino.
Thank you. To Councilwoman Jermaine's point, and what you touched upon, Mr. Talley, is my understanding, I'm not an engineer, is that basically there's long-term solutions that also involve vegetation improvements in terms of mitigating the flood water so that it has a place to go, so that it's not just flooding a certain area. And those are difficult because that is a lot of infrastructure change and investment
Right, and then that comes along with higher maintenance costs for your municipality to maintain. So the idea of tree wells and bump outs to help, well, now you have other problems that come along with that. So it's going into it with eyes wide open. And will that actually create the infrastructure you need to take 100-year storm in 2 hours? You know, that's the question. And I think everyone would sit at the table and try to do the best they could with the resources provided to make that
And then
happen.
The one last thing I just want to say is part of putting it on this agenda tonight was also to address the specific major problem areas and what the top 5 or the repeat places and what the fixes are and what the costs are. If it's not something that can be fixed, why? I know offhand ones that come up quite often, Wilbur Avenue, going towards Oaklawn Avenue. I know the city has made some improvements in terms of the sign and I'm sure there's going to be discussion about it's a big overhaul because of the bridge height,
Right.
which complicates things. But if you can touch upon that, another problem area that seems to come up more frequently is Park Avenue, Reservoir Avenue, and Atwood Avenue. That seems to be more prevalent, and I'm sure there's others. So if you could just outline some of those areas that I mentioned and what the top, maybe 5 problem areas are and what we plan to do.
Sure. Wilbur Ave, we can start there. And I will say I don't have all the answers. So I'm just providing information that we've gathered. A lot of this hasn't gone further than looking at it briefly, conceptual plans, and then rough ideas of cost. So I just want to say that. Wilbur Ave flash flooding in 2011, there was just a discussion about doing some underground infiltration behind the bike path. That could potentially help this situation. That in today's dollars would probably be in the $5 million range. So that would be one solution. I know Peter Alvidi was on the radio this morning talking about bringing the bike path to grade and raising the belly in that road to try to fix it. Rough numbers, we were throwing around a couple $1 million for that if we were going to do that, maybe more. So I'd hate to have any of those numbers stick. I'm just trying to give a rough idea. And those are the 2 kind of bigger items on that we would entertain, I think. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Talley. And since you mentioned Director Alvidi, I'm wondering, do we have a relationship with that department in which we're working with DOT stormwater management program? Because I know that they will help, they want municipalities to work with the state to plan, fund, and carry out the resiliency components. And I know that a few of the roads that Madam President had mentioned are state roads. So I'm just curious how we're going to work with DOT so that these projects, align together and we're not, doing roads over and over again like we see happening.
Before you answer that, great question. Actually, that was my question. I was just showing Council President Marino was like, that's the question that I had, because to piggyback off of what you're saying, just so that way when you answer, you can probably answer the question for the both of us, is the number of streets that are actually so far brought to our attention in terms of flooding, how many of them are actually state, right? And of those, what responsibility do they have, to your point? And what responsibility then do we have on that end?
Right. So as a stormwater coordinator, we have a network that we work closely together. So if I'm having a problem, I can reach out to someone and not reinvent the wheel if we have an issue, which has been very helpful. And I'm in close contact with the state's stormwater coordinator. I will say that occasionally we're getting involved with our MS4 permit, which is really driven to deal with water quality issues and dealing with more of the science behind that and coming up with stormwater management plans and not necessarily fixing all the flooding problems. So they're not always tied together. However, if we do a larger flood mitigation program, we certainly want to try to put in some green infrastructure if possible. So on the, say, a level down, I have a good relationship with the stormwater group there. You know, as far as the engineering side, that takes cooperation from, you know, from the city and them.
Great, thank you so much. If there's no further questions on this topic, I'd like to move on to Council President Marino's communications. Any other questions on this topic?
Just if you have another, like, you mentioned Wilbur Avenue, but what are the other, let's say, 4 top ones, remediation plans and costs?
Fletcher Avenue, that gets flooded out. There's a Pecasset River plan by the NRCS that's somewhere in the works. I don't know exactly where that stands at this point, but that's a frequent flyer. Yeah, they had a couple partners that were looking into that, and that's been a long term. These things move slow, slower than when someone's getting water coming to their front door. I can understand the concerns. And then we have some in the Garden City area. There's some flooding that we're trying to work on. Now, when we received this study, we started implementing things that we felt would help, that would be cost effective. They were in the operating budget to do. I think they have been helpful. It's hard to quantify that because you don't know if the storm they had a problem with before is the exact same scenario that you got this time. So I will say that there are some happy campers based on the work that we've done. So positive things have come out of that study. The larger issues that I believe we need to bring in partners or get larger amounts of money, I would say have not been addressed. I'm at State. I'm not exactly sure. We have a lot of interconnections with that stretch. And we've done an analysis. There's a lot of interconnections throughout the city between state and municipal roads. So I can't speak to exactly where those go.
Great, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on something that became an issue. Oak Lawn Avenue, just to mention, is a state road. Obviously, it hit the news the other day, some unfortunate people, but it's on the state road. And Mr. Alvidi, listening to him this morning, had stated that those apartments were built on a floodplain from what he said. Certainly Oak Lawn Avenue's there. We can't make a conclusion, but Cranston doesn't necessarily feel responsible, though we feel badly for the circumstances there. Atwood Avenue in Randall, it's another one, again, Atwood being a state road. So it is kind of working in conjunction with Mr. Alvidi in terms of relationship. We have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Alvidi, coincidentally, scheduled to talk about Route 37 and what's going on, the banging and clanging. But this will be part of that discussion also. But will it happen overnight? No promises.
I appreciate that. Yep.
Again, I have a few questions, but we can talk after the meeting, or or at some point I can send you an email if that works out, just in terms of other areas that I also know that are in flood zones, I guess, in terms of emails coming in. All right, great. Thank you. Council President Marino, you actually have one other item, which is fire department stations, status of necessary repairs and maintenance.
Mm.
Go ahead.
I reached out to Director Moretti in advance of tonight's meeting, mentioning that I'd be putting it on this agenda tonight. The fire department stations, some in particular, I had the opportunity to tour and take a look at firsthand, and there are some major need of immediate repairs. And I wanted to know from the administration and what the status is with respect to the necessary repairs and the maintenance.
Yeah, we actually, next week I'm scheduled with the mayor and the fire chief to view those two stations in particular. I know the roof repair down in Garden City is budgeted being done, if not already done. But any other concerns, we didn't, as you know, that the chief didn't mention it, so we're kind of circling back. But next week, we're going to be physically reviewing that. And they also want to consider perhaps other city buildings. But I think it's certainly worthy of taking a look at, and we can get an assessment. Also, we'd like to involve the chief, given the chain of command too.
Yep, no, that's perfectly fine. And I do have some pictures that I gave to Tom, which he can put up this evening, just so we can see what I'm speaking of. So, because pictures speak louder, I think, than the actual words. Got it. Okay. And this particular one, this is Station 2, which is right here on Pontiac Ave. This as well is also Station 2. You can see, you know, there's tiles missing. This is a stairwell, Station 2. You know, whether there's lead paint or asbestos, I don't know. But it needs to be addressed in the large gaping hole. And, you know, we have our firefighters sleeping in these buildings, and they deserve better. So I understand cost is a factor. However, I wouldn't want to live this way. I wouldn't, if I were a landlord and had a tenant with these conditions, I would be in trouble. And if we as a city need to utilize our ARPA funds to make these necessary repairs, then that's something that at least I would, this is exactly on the floor in which our treasured firefighters are sleeping, what you see right there. You know, Tom, if you can move on to another, this as well. This is the flooring of where our firefighters are sleeping. Again, not an expert, but that's not the way it should be. If we need to utilize ARPA funds, that's something, and that's some leakage, damage again in the sleeping quarters of our firefighters. I had toured the station on Dyer Avenue and the station on Pontiac Avenue. If we need to utilize our ARPA funds to do this, at least myself, I would be in favor of that. And that's something that I would propose and work with the administration on, and try and get support from the council to utilize ARPA funds to make the necessary repairs. So I will continue this to the full council meeting at the end of this month to have further discussion on where this situation stands. And I look forward to having further discussions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Council President. I will add, if possible, to the administration, given the fact that you're going to continue this conversation until we are able to provide everyone with working conditions as well, that I'm with you on that 100%. I'm curious, though, to the administration, is there a master building improvement plan, and has there been any assessments of our buildings done within the last few years? And if so, would you be able to share that with us?
I believe there's no study of city buildings that's been performed.
Okay, thank you.
I'm surprised it didn't work its way through the budget process, frankly, that it came to light subsequent to it. Certainly is worthy of addressing. But again, for some reason, was not illuminated to all of us through the budget process. And certainly the union representatives and the councilwoman exposed this, which is something we certainly should address. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll join you in that conversation as well, Council President. That being said, Councilwoman Manzoli.
Thank you. I'm a little concerned too that this didn't come through the budget process, because I hope that it's not considered capital to be fixing city buildings. I don't know at what point it becomes that. So I'm just curious. I see Council President shaking her head. So I'm just curious how that works, because I don't want us to go forward and then we have to, I don't think that this should have to wait. It looks like it's a pretty big problem right now. So I just want to know if it can be fixed that way or if it actually can't, and we're just spinning our wheels.
While I'm not an expert, to be living and working in those conditions, I would have concerns about OSHA requirements potentially and things like that. So with respect to it being allowed or disallowed because it is post-budget, that is not an issue when it comes to that severity of the need for repair. And the fact remains that we have a building and maintenance department. And we have the ability to amend the budget post that time, and we have the authority to extend ARPA funds. And clearly the firefighters who put themselves out, on the front lines during COVID, would I assume, and we can have those further discussions, would qualify.
Can I ask through the Attorney Videcchia, do you know, I'm not disputing what you're saying, Council President. I'm just wondering how the process goes. I don't know that we can amend the capital budget. So that's why I'm asking the question, because if we don't typically amend the capital budget, stuff has to go through planning. I agree with Councilwoman Vargas that there should be some kind of every 5 years an assessment of city buildings, and then it probably would have to go through planning. So that's my question. I agree that this is egregious, but I'm wanting to know if the process for fixing city buildings. Thank you.
Without, Attorney Videcchia, I'm trying to be mindful as well and not getting derailing from anything that's on the agenda for the topic as well. And I see Councilmember Papalaskis, and I know we have 2 other meetings as well to continue, but just double checking.
I mean, the question, first of all, there are provisions made for emergencies. So I can't see from where I am, but it sounds to me like this could very well qualify and would justify some type of emergency appropriation. As far as the intricacies of, whether to use opera funds, whether to amend capital budgets, truthfully, I would like to discuss that with the Director of Finance. It can get a little complex, but in the short run, I do think it probably would come under and would probably justify some type of emergency appropriation.
Thank you. Thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you Councilwoman Jermaine.
Thank you. We have building and maintenance, right? Should they have a budget when we have some of those things arise that can cover that right away? That's
The maintenance
building
within
and
the
maintenance. So they
city
have
to
a
provide.
project. They have a budget. Can we look at the building and maintenance if they have any budget that
Yep.
for those kind of things when they arise? We don't need to wait and just go right there, take the money and do it.
There is an operating budget, but those look like capital repairs. Probably should have been brought to the attention of the city council, going through the administration, the city council. Frankly, we're blindsided a bit. Certainly the councilwoman mentioned this to us to give us a heads up. But certainly the fire chief did not come forward. It did not come through the ranks. It was not proposed this year, as we all know. So I think we're all a bit blindsided and surprised by it, but worthy of addressing. So yes, the answer is there is a budget for building maintenance, but it only goes so far for maintenance. That didn't look like maintenance. That looked like the structural repairs that are going to be necessary to fix.
That doesn't fall on the maintenance? What I see here, it's repairs at the
It can-
building,
under the
on the maintenance.
under city
It's
buildings.
a city
capital
building maintenance.
capital expenditures under city buildings. If it's over a certain threshold, that looks like it qualifies.
There's no allocated dollar amounts within building and maintenance that's going to be able, Councilwoman Jermaine, to actually address the situation urgently right now. Hence the reason why we're asking or having the conversation as to whether or not there's possibly some emergency appropriation, whether a capital project or some APRA funds to be used for that building or any building similar like that.
My bad, but how that's fly away?
We will
we're
have
gonna
a
catch up.
discussion with the fire chief.
Because we have all
this evening.
all the public buildings, we should have money available when, like, the same way you have a house, you have a sewer problem, a plumbing problem.
If it's deemed an emergency, there are city funds to take care of it. If it's deemed an emergency, yes,
This is an emergency.
it will be evaluated to see if it's
That's
an
an
emergency.
A lot of conversations.
I don't think we all should panic. I think we should prudently address it. It just came to our attention. It was there for a while, as we can all see. Unfortunately, no one brought it to the administration's attention, nor this council up until Councilperson Marino this evening, and we're going to respond to it. But we're not going to declare a state of emergency without knowing the facts. So we're happy to look at it. We'll look at it prudently. And if it is emergency, then the city can appropriate funds for it to repair emergencies. So I think we're all saying the same thing, but we just want to exercise a little prudence. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And I would add, as a final thing, we have engineers within the city. We have the inspections department here in the city as well. And so I would suggest, as this topic is moving along, considering it is, the visuals that we kind of came upon today that Council President brought to our attention, is also making sure that that building is an actual building that we can continue to also operate in. For something like that, I would recommend engineering coming in and having some sort of structural analysis being done, and assessment into that building, and continue the conversation from there. That would allow us then to provide us with some further information and further discussion on the life of that building and many others as well.
Mayor?
So, yep, go ahead. One final thing before we adjourn.
Yes, yeah, what is the role of building inspection in that matter? So don't we have a building inspection in the city that should go and look at all the building we have to know when there's things that needs to be done? Can we
This was
put-
not called to the building inspector's attention. They spoke to Councilwoman Marino. They did not speak to the fire chief. They did not speak to the mayor. They did not speak to building inspections. Council Marino is calling it to our attention for the first time with these pictures. We never saw these pictures before. I'm discussing this as we speak with the fire chief as this is going on, to get some accountability. And I'm sure
My
he's got good
question-
answers.
My question, Director, is we have a lot of buildings in this city, and I don't know if it's happened to other buildings that be in really disregard. So do we have someone who his job is to make sure all the public buildings are maintained properly? And then before the budget or whatever, they have something in place to say, when this is my job to go to inspect the city hall, to know what is correct, is somebody who is responsible to talk with this person to know what needs to be done, what needs to be fixed. That's the question. I'm not asking about what is just brought to you right now, because if we hire somebody who have the job to inspect our public building, that's their job to bring that up.
To answer your question, there is not a designated person that does the rounds at every building proactively. We have people who will work in these buildings that we welcome their input if they have any concerns, and then we'll go out. Certainly, this fire looks at fire protection according to the regulations, but we would think that our employees would be vocal
So we
enough.
don't have.
Well,
building
all right,
inspector.
I'm going to respectfully actually say, the council president is moving this to the July 24th full council meeting. Councilmember Ferry, you haven't spoken. I'll give you just the last.
I need
few
10
minutes, if you
seconds.
don't mind.
Do we have a director of public buildings in the city of Cranston? Yes or no?
There is a.
Yes or no, please?
There is no one called, and there never has been director of public buildings in the city of Cranston. So the answer is no.
Thank you.
Maybe
Thank you.
we should create a position of director of public buildings in the next budget
Right.
process, should you think that's necessary. But there's never been a position in my history. I've been alive for 65 years. I'm probably about cognizant of 55 years about city government.
Thank you, Director Moretti. That being said, this is going before the full council on July 24th. That being said, that adjourns the meeting. May I please have a motion to
To
adjourn?
adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. We are now going into the Ordinance Committee meeting. I'm just going to take what time is it? 7:33. Just take a quick 5-minute break before we start ordinance. Thank you. All right. Welcome to the Ordinance Committee. It's Thursday, July 13th at 6:30 PM. To the clerk, can you please take a roll call?
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Present.
Councilman Ferry,
Present.
Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campopiano, Councilwoman Jermaine,
Present.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Present.
Council President Marino.
Present.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilman Ferry.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vargas, Council President Marino.
Yes.
Right, next item we have is committee business matters carried over 2-23-04 ordinance amendment of chapter 15 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Buildings and Construction Led Safe Homes, sponsored by Councilman Donegan, co-sponsored by Councilwoman Jermaine. This was continued from March, April, May, and June of this year. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to continue?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Actually, we don't need a discussion to, we do need a motion to continue. Sorry. Clerk, can you please take the roll on that motion? And this is for next month's ordinance committee meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilman Ferry,
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
All right, thank you. On to the next item, 3-23-04 ordinance amendment of the Title 10, Chapter 28, Section 090 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, All Night Parking Prohibited, sponsored by Councilwoman Jermaine. This was continued from the April 13, 2023 meeting. Is there a
May
motion
I?
to approve? Oh, Councilmember Jermaine.
Okay, this ordinance, I would like to withdraw it for today for various reasons. I went back to countless meeting we had, the workshop we have, and the communication we had in January when Councilwoman Renzulli put this matter in overnight parking for communication. And then when I review all the communication, everything that has been said about the ordinance, and I went back to take into consideration all of those things, and I have a lot of amendments to make. So for that reason, and I prefer we withdraw this one to propose the same ordinance with amendment for next meetings. And also, I request access public record from the administration to inform better this, and I haven't received the answer yet. So there's information that I need around ticket because I have been receiving almost every day someone that say, I can't anymore, I can't. And then I have received not only complaint about people who got ticketed, but also complaint about people who park right now in the sidewalk or in front of the house. And you know, people are really care about the beauty of their lawn. And it doesn't make it look when you have 2, 3 neighbors because they are tired of being ticketing. Now they park their car in front of their lawn. So where is the beautification? So I have received someone say, oh, my neighbors park in the sidewalk. Now, they cannot park in the street, they park on the sidewalk, and parking the sidewalk is also a violation. So there is no option for those people, and that's why I want to continue to move with this ordinance overnight parking, but I request an information from the administration that I'm waiting for, and I sent this email on June 26th. And based on the law, when you request public access to public record, they have 10 days to give it to you. And I don't know, as a council person, do I need to go to the process to request this information? So if what I need, I will ask the lawyers, do I need to go to file as anybody to have this information? Because I need this information from the administration, from the police department to inform, this is the last piece I need for the parking ordinance. And I went back, I read all the notes about what the fire chief has said, what the police chief has said, what the administration has said, and I reread them and I read them, and I know in my heart, we need to do something. We need to pass, we need to allow people who need a overnight parking to be able to park in front of their house. But I'm going to withdraw this one to take into consideration all of those as I'm waiting for police department, the administration to give me all the information.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion to withdraw? I don't think you do, but you can double check.
So Councilwoman, are you sure that you want to withdraw this, or do you want to continue this maybe, 8 weeks out? I don't know. Because if you withdraw it,
Can I
Then
reintroduce one?
you can withdraw it, yeah. But then you understand, everything's gonna have to be reintroduced again. Once, if it's, I don't know, you're withdrawing it because you're waiting for information, is what you're saying, correct? So
And there's amendments that I have to put. There's a
Okay,
lot of
all right.
amendments that I want.
then,
Yeah,
okay, if you withdraw it, that's fine. You
Yeah.
can withdraw it, because in all honesty, this is going to take, I spoke with Attorney Angel today before I came to the meeting, and this actually came up. And I guess there was supposed to be a series of workshops
we
to
did have it.
discuss this. How many were there? were
We
there-
have the workshop.
There
we
was
have-
one, though. There was one workshop.
No. One workshop, yep.
Yeah, I think, and again, this is something, we can talk about this, but this is going to take quite a bit of work, because I think we talked about the administration being involved. There's an issue, it could possibly implicate the comprehensive plan. There's, put it this way, there's issues that we need to discuss. So it does make sense to withdraw it, and we'll go forward from there. But we did discuss this today.
You wait, so.
We don't, I don't think we need a motion. I don't believe we do.
So I can.
You can just unilaterally,
I can withdraw it.
yes,
Okay, so.
you're the sponsor. Is there a co-sponsor?
Yeah, pardon?
Is there a
Yes,
co-sponsor?
no.
There's no co-sponsor.
If there's a
Okay, all right,
co-sponsor,
fine.
but
No,
there's
then-
none.
then
so
it's your-
he's-
it's
For
your-
now,
It's your ordinance.
so what I'm saying
withdraw it.
is I'm gonna withdraw it. And then I already have something else. With only one information I don't have, and I'm gonna send it to something I need to, if I don't say it, I will not feel good to say.
So we don't have a motion for discussion on this particular thing. I know there's a couple of the council members who want to chime in on this. Do we need
Okay,
a motion
let's-
on
okay, let's-
this to?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I can second it? Second.
Discussion, Councilwoman Mazzoli, go ahead.
Councilman Jermaine, I just might suggest that perhaps would it be possible to push this to planning to have the comprehensive plan as it's being rewritten, study this and include it, because parking, as I've looked up in my own research, is part of a planning function in urban planning. So if that's possible, then it could be included. I don't know if it can be included because of how the RFP is, but if that's a discussion to have, there's been previous conversation when we had a public works director that they said there needed to be a study of the roads and all different stuff that we would have to put out to RFP anyway. So if they could do it as part of the comprehensive plan, and that's supposed to get done in maybe a year total because of stuff that came down from the legislature, then we might be able to kind of kill two birds with one stone and get real concrete answers where this is possible, how it should be done from people who do this for a living. So it's just an idea. If you want to take it, run with it, go for it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mazzoli. May I suggest then you reach out to Jason, the planning department, in general, see what he's able to provide you with, in terms of possibly taking that suggestion. I'm not sure, how that'll work, but I would
Yeah,
probably
I
encourage
remember
that.
at the last meeting, we had, Council Donegan asked, Dr. Jason if they have a program that can help you study the roads, the street, so we don't need to end like waste money, really invest a lot of money to do this. I am not for really invest a lot of money. We could do that without using a lot of taxpayer money to do this. That's, yeah. So if it's not gonna cost a lot of money, so the issue is, as of now, I have a ticket, I have to say, and I was summoned to go to before the court on July 20th, I have to go before the court for a ticket I had myself. And if I don't have it, I'm gonna get arrested. So it is written in my summon. So imagine someone who got that, who didn't even have time to look at those things. And the way this is written sent to me is that it doesn't even have my name on it. It's just motorist. And I know I have the ticket. So I call the court and to say, hey, what is this? It's oh, that's a ticket you need to pay. And people, $25 for the first, if you don't pay it on time, it becomes $50. It becomes $75. And it's unfair. It's unfair. So at the last communication, when council went to put it on, the solicitor said, that was in January, he said by February, he will have an ordinance. He said that at the meeting. And you know why I keep putting this? Because I don't want it to be dead. And I was hoping we will have something that we can take from my ordinance. I'm not a lawyer, but what I draft is with my constituent that came to my community meetings. Homeowners, landlords, they sit at the table in my community meetings and we come up with the language of the ordinance that I submitted. It's not something I did myself, but I was hoping we will have something, as I was told, we can combine it together. So I still believe we can do it. And that's why I want to have those information also to include it, to submit, and we can, because when Dr. Jason said, yes, we can do it, I don't think we need to wait for 5 years to have this result, or 2 years for the comprehensive plan. I don't think we need that. If we have the app that can just tell us this is the street that's wide enough that can do that. You see what I mean? We don't need to wait two years to have it done. So if we have the app, because he said when Council Donegan asked him, he said, yes, we can do that. All right.
All right, so there is a motion, there's a second. Clearly, there was a discussion. Hearing you say that you are withdrawing this. So by withdrawing it, do we have to withdraw our motions? I would say first, so then that way you can actually then withdraw your ordinance.
I withdraw my motion to approve.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Jermaine?
I want to withdraw this ordinance and we introduce it next meeting.
Thank you. All right, so that ordinance has been withdrawn. On to the next item. It is 4-23-01. Ordinance and amendment of chapter 17 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled zoning, change of zone 0 Bedson Road, AP 4 lots 2606 through 2609. Sponsored by Councilman Papalaskis. Before I ask for any motion, I'm going to actually be turning this over to Council President Marino.
Thank you. The clerk has advised us this evening that we have not received the normal and required recommendation or lack of recommendation from the Plan Commission that heard this through the Planning Department. So for that reason, we're not going to be able to hear it this evening. I did speak to the people and the attorney for the applicants and advise them of the same thing so that they know. And I will email the Director Pizzullo tonight, including the applicant's attorney's email on there, and ask him to update the applicant's attorney, and we'll see from there. Perhaps if the Plan Commission did hear it, then we can maybe have the Ordinance Committee meeting just before the full council meeting, like 15 minutes before or so that we can have it heard rather than delay the applicant. Councilman Papalaskis, I think, was a sponsor of this.
Yeah, this, I know we can't have a lot of discussion on this. I think we're gonna continue it, but this goes back probably a year and a half that they've been working on that. When I was president, they asked me to sponsor it and I happily did it. I believe the Planning Commission met a couple of nights ago, so they probably haven't had time to give us their normal recommendation and communication. So whatever is satisfactory to them, I'll be here either way to speak on it if needed.
Sounds good, and I agree. We can do it right before the city council meeting. And you'll follow up. So great. Thank you, Council President. All right, moving on to the next item. It's public hearing and public comment. Is there anybody here in the chamber who would like to speak on any docketed matters only? Nope. Okay. Tom, can you check if there's anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on docketed items?
There's no public comment.
Thank you, Tom.
Motion to adjourn.
Public comments are now closed. There is nothing under new matters before the committee. And now your
Question, I know I withdraw this, but this is stays in my.
you cannot ask any additional. Is it relative to anything that had to do with your ordinance that you withdrew? Okay, well, does it have to do with anything with parking, anything with that? Then you, unfortunately, because you withdrew, we can't go back to that comment. So not to say that you can't have that sidebar conversation with the attorney who's here with us this evening. Thank you. Councilmember Ferry.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. All right, ayes have it. Thank you. Motion, meeting adjourned.
Okay, I'd like to open up the Special Safety Services and Licenses Committee agenda meeting. Madam Clerk, please take a roll. Everybody loves those pilots. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
Yes.
Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campopiano, Councilman Papalaskis,
Present.
Council Vice President Vargas.
Present.
Sorry. Councilman Ferry,
Present.
Council President Marino.
Present.
Okay, any public comment? Is there anyone here in council chambers that'd like to speak on any docketed item? Anyone on Zoom that'd like to speak on any docketed item?
There's no public comment.
Okay. Now, I open public hearings. We have two items on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone here from Tabor Frankie VFW Post? If so, could you please step forward, state your name and address for the record? Please make sure the green light is on.
It is.
Okay,
My name's Carlos Barbero, 170 Randall Street, Cranston, Rhode Island.
okay. You have a request here. Could you please explain to us exactly what it is you're trying to accomplish with this entertainment license?
Sure. I'm the adjutant for the Veteran of Foreign Wars, VFW Post 2396 here in Cranston. My counterpart here, Wilson Soto, is the quartermaster. And the premise for having their entertainment license is basically it's a trial for this year, so that we can see if this is something that we can build on for future years. And the main goal or the effort would be for recruiting purposes and to build our membership of the VFW Post.
Anything else you want to tell us, like where it's going to be outside in the parking lot?
Sure. So the intent with the entertainment license applies indoor and outdoor. The indoor factor would help when people rent the hall out. They have the option to bring in a DJ or an acoustic type of musician. As far as the outdoor venue, limited, again, acoustic type musicians, as big as maybe a 3-4 person band during the hours of 4 to no later than 10 p.m. And again, this is a trial that we're trying to do to see if we can build this into something a little bit more elaborate that brings together the community, diversity, inclusion, members, new members. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, if I could have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion from the committee or questions for the applicant? Councilman Paplaskas.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to the clerk. Madam Clerk, are there any notations on the routing slip or anything specific from the traffic engineer because the entertainment's in a parking lot?
In reading from the routing slip, the comment from the traffic engineer is hard barricade to be maintained at all times between pedestrian and vehicle activity during all outdoor events.
Sir, through the chair, is that something you plan on doing to provide those barriers?
Yes, on the diagram that we submitted, which was approved, any events that we do outside would have food trucks. The food trucks themselves would provide the barrier for the parking lot.
You also have the hard cement barriers out in the parking lot now, don't you?
We do. If we expect that the venue is going to draw a decent sized crowd for safety reasons, we also have the permission. I spoke to Scott from from Parks and Rec. If we need to completely move it out of the parking lot, we can do it in the softball field behind the fence there, as long as it doesn't interfere with any games for that day.
I have a question on that.
Council Vice President.
Thank you. Can you just repeat what you said, that you spoke with the Park and Rec director and he allowed you to?
So we're always looking for, contingency plans. If we needed to move the venue from the parking lot, then, we can do something.
Like the band and move it over into the park?
Correct.
Okay. I have some concerns on that because, not to derail from that, but only because of the ongoing conversations that we as a council have been having regarding our baseball fields and the maintenance and the costs that has taken on taxpayers. That's a conversation that I think anyone here on the council can actually have with the Park and Recs director before authorizing such thing in the administration. However, not to say that, you may not have any other contingency plans other than that. But in terms of your parking, you're using your layout, right? So the parking lot, that's where the band's gonna go, or the outdoor events.
Half the parking lot would be closed
Okay.
off, the other half would be available for parking.
Okay, and because you said you may be expecting a lot of people, which is great for businesses, right? Where else could they park? I know there's like an O'Reilly across the street.
There is an O'Reilly across the street that has parking, also the parking that's on the side of the baseball field as well.
Okay. And my other question is the band gonna play or any music in general that you would have, whether it's a DJ, just your speakers? Are they playing on Sundays, right, all the way up until 10 o'clock?
No, ma'am, this is not an every weekend type of event. I think right now, again, this is a trial thing that we're trying to do here. And Sunday was, again, a contingency date. The main date we're looking at is Saturday. 3-4 events before the end of the summer, just as to gauge. And time frame is flexible as well. We have nothing set up yet. We want to work within the parameters that the city will allow, be respectful to our neighbors. We don't want to cause, a scene. This is all about, building awareness, bringing families together, doing that. It's a family, friendly event that we're trying to create in the hopes that we build, membership for the VFW. It's no cost, everything's free to the public.
That you had mentioned.
Understood. Absolutely.
That. Sorry, can you hear me now? What the hours of operation were gonna be on Sunday, because it's a residential area, and I think we had said that if it was on Sunday, they wouldn't close at 10. It would be earlier unless it was a holiday. The Sunday, the Monday after obviously was a holiday, then we would allow it to close at the time that was being requested. Because I'd be hypocrite of myself to grant it to you and not the other businesses that have come before me that I have voted for. On Sunday, would you consider at least, was it 9:30 that we said, or 9? It was like, yeah.
Again, we
It was
just want to work within the
It
limitations.
was
that
9:30
the city
PM.
has
It's
set
only
for
half
us.
hour, but
Yeah, but we want to work within the limitations that
Okay.
the city has, guidance provided. Originally, the full plan was just, hey, strictly Saturdays, but we didn't know if there was going to be a baseball tournament going on that we would have to push an event to Sunday or a rain delay. But that is a very reasonable request and we have no problem.
all right, I appreciate it because I know there's some houses up on,
Yes, ma'am.
is it Randall, right? Yeah, on Randall. So again, if it obviously goes well and come next year or whenever it is, and you like to expand the hours, we can always,
ma'am.
discuss that later on. And if there was ever a problem, and this is something that I tell I've at least said to the other business as well,
Yep.
is that if there was ever a concern within the community, we can always do like a show cause as well, that we would have, before we do that, we would obviously reach out to you. And I think is that your district? Council Papalaxis district, but I'm sure that, you want to be good neighbors as well. So,
Absolutely.
that's all that I have for me, as it's more of the timing on Sundays.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Paplaskas?
Do you plan on doing outdoor entertainment the day of the feast fireworks on the 22nd?
No.
Okay. I was going to amend the time on that day only, but that parking lot's going to be tough
Correct.
to use with the fire truck there and
Yeah, it's closed out.
it's all closed
Yep.
down. Okay.
Anyone else? All right, so what we're gonna ask you is if it's on a Sunday, if you would be willing to stop at 9:30. Unless it's a holiday the next day, then you could go till 10.
Yes.
And so we can change that, Madam Clerk? Okay, and this is for the parking lot only, barricaded off, not to go into the fields or anything. So this is just for the parking lot. If something like that were to come up, you'd have to come before us to ask permission to do that. That would be a whole different ballgame, not to be, make it a pun. And that's indoor, outdoor. Indoor, outdoor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and like, it's only for 6 weeks right now that you're asking. So if something were to go wrong, we would address it. If it goes right and you want to extend it next year or do it more, you come before us and we'll be glad to, provided we haven't gotten a bunch of phone calls complaining about it. So we want you to be successful at this.
Thank you.
But we want to also protect ourselves in making sure that the neighbors and everyone is happy. Everybody's got to be a good neighbor to each other.
Absolutely.
Madam President.
Thank you, to the chair. Councilman Campopiano, who can't attend this evening, did relay to me just a concern to make sure he has a business in that area, just so you know, and he's not here. His concern to make sure that you'd be serving food in addition to alcohol at the time of your event. Is that correct?
We'd hire food trucks. So the post itself wouldn't be serving food.
That's fine. Thanks. Yep.
All right. Okay. Madam Clerk, please take a vote.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Ferry,
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time.
All right. We have one more item on the agenda. Is anyone here from Rainbow Water? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Tell us a little bit about Rainbow Water.
Hi, my name is Diana Chuang, and we're just changing the name of the previous name from Warrior World to Rainbow Water. Nothing's gonna change. It's frozen yogurt with smoothies.
Okay, Madam Clerk, as far as you know, all the paperwork is in order? Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Council Vice President.
Thank you. How are you? Good evening. Right on Councilwoman area. You guys have been in operations. I wish you continued success as you continue to operate on here. My one question for you, we're voting on your victualizing today. Can you pick it up? You have to post it on your business
Okay.
so maybe you can call the clerk's office and see when it's ready, but make sure you come and pick it up because you didn't pick up the one from last time.
Okay.
And which it was approved, but you just make sure you pick it up because you want to post it on your business.
Okay,
Okay?
I will.
All right.
Thanks so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
The license is already prepared, so she can pick it up tomorrow.
Oh,
Okay,
even better.
perfect. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please take a vote.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Ferry,
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Congratulations. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.